Before you decided to click on this video, did you have the feeling that something unusual was quietly moving beneath the surface of your everyday life? Maybe it was a strange sensation you could not fully explain, an unexpected thought that suddenly appeared in your mind, or a soft inner voice telling you that something deeply important was beginning to unfold behind what you could see. What if I told you that right now your soulmate is moving through one of the most meaningful challenges of their entire life, and that somehow, in ways neither of you may completely understand yet, you are connected to what they are experiencing? This is not an ordinary challenge. It is not simply about difficult circumstances, unfortunate timing, or the normal pressures that come with everyday existence. This is something much deeper, something that reaches directly into the center of their being and forces them to confront emotions they have spent a long time avoiding, truths they have repeatedly pushed away, and choices they can no longer continue postponing. At this very moment, they may be questioning almost everything they once believed about themselves and the direction of their life. They could be caught in a powerful internal struggle between fear and courage, trying to balance the comfort of what they already know with the undeniable pull towards something much greater. And perhaps the most unexpected part of all is that your presence in their life may be influencing this personal transformation far more than either of you currently realizes. The signs of this change may already be appearing. The shift has already begun. The question is no longer whether something significant is happening. The deeper question is what this challenge is attempting to show them, what it is awakening inside them, and why your connection seems to be part of the process. A major turning point is unfolding in your soulmate's life right now. Even if they have not spoken about these emotions with anyone, even if they have kept everything hidden behind a calm expression, the emotional weight of this period may be becoming increasingly difficult for them to ignore. There are certain seasons in life when everything seems completely ordinary from the outside. The routines continue. People go to work, have conversations, complete their responsibilities, and appear to be moving forward as usual. Yet beneath that peaceful exterior, something profound can be shifting through the very foundation of a person's inner world. These moments often arrive without an obvious warning. They do not always come with a clear sign or a definite message explaining what should happen next. Instead, they develop gradually through a combination of emotions, realizations, unexpected circumstances, memories, and subtle changes in perspective. Little by little, these experiences begin forcing a person to look at their existence from an entirely different point of view. This seems to be the kind of inner experience your soulmate may be moving through at this very moment. For a long time, people can move through life by simply repeating familiar patterns. They make decisions according to habit, comfort, fear, or what they believe other people expect from them. They become attached to certain routines, particular beliefs, and familiar ways of understanding who they are and where they belong. Eventually, however, there can come a moment when the deeper self begins asking an uncomfortable question: does the life I am living still represent who I truly am? That question can be incredibly difficult because it challenges the very things that once created a sense of security. It can create an ongoing tension between the life someone has carefully built and the life they privately feel drawn toward. Your soulmate may be standing directly inside that uncomfortable space between an older version of themselves and a new version that is slowly beginning to emerge. One part of them may desperately want to remain where everything feels familiar, manageable, and safe. They may want to continue with the routines they already understand because predictability offers comfort. Yet another part of them may feel an increasingly powerful desire to move towards something deeper, more meaningful, and more authentic, even if that new direction feels uncertain and frightening. This internal conflict is often one of the strongest indications that a genuine turning point has arrived. It is not simply about choosing between two options. It is about deciding which version of themselves they are finally prepared to become. A major turning point rarely gives someone every answer immediately. Instead, it demands patience, honesty, courage, and a willingness to look inward without pretending everything is fine. Your soulmate may be repeatedly returning to the same questions in their mind. They might revisit old memories, reconsider decisions from their past, and examine beliefs they once accepted without ever questioning them. Things that used to seem completely obvious may suddenly feel uncertain. At the same time, possibilities they once considered unrealistic may begin to feel surprisingly attainable. These changes can be both exciting and overwhelming because they reveal that something important is transforming within their internal world. During periods like this, emotions often become much stronger. Even small moments may suddenly seem meaningful. A brief conversation can remain in their thoughts for hours or even days. A familiar place may trigger an unexpected memory. A simple interaction can awaken emotions they thought they had already moved beyond. This happens because a turning point is not only about what is happening externally. It is also about a fundamental shift in awareness. A person begins noticing things that they previously overlooked. They become conscious of feelings they once suppressed. They begin recognizing desires that had been buried underneath fear, uncertainty, responsibility, or the distractions of everyday life. There may also be moments when your soulmate feels completely divided between logic and intuition. Logic usually asks what is practical, predictable, measurable, and safe. It wants evidence. It wants certainty. It wants a clear plan before taking the next step. Intuition, however, often speaks differently. It can be quiet, subtle, and persistent. It points toward possibilities that cannot always be explained through facts alone. At a major turning point, these two inner forces can come into direct conflict. One side may desperately search for certainty, while another part quietly understands that real growth requires stepping beyond the boundaries of what has already been known. This struggle can feel confusing, but it is often an essential part of personal transformation. What makes this particular period so meaningful is that turning points have the ability to reshape the direction of an entire life. One realization can change the way someone views their future. One decision can open a door that once appeared permanently closed. One moment of honesty can completely alter the path they thought they were destined to follow. The person who eventually emerges from such a period is often not the same person who entered it. They may carry new wisdom, a different perspective, and a deeper understanding of their own emotional nature. They may become more honest about what they want, what they fear, and what they are no longer willing to tolerate. Your soulmate may not completely understand the importance of this experience yet. They may not have the words to describe what is happening inside them. They might simply feel that something within them is demanding a change that can no longer be ignored. They may sense that certain chapters of their life are naturally coming to an end, while unfamiliar possibilities are beginning to appear in front of them. The road ahead may still look unclear, but movement has already started. Old foundations are shifting, new thoughts are developing, previously hidden emotions are coming closer to the surface. Their inner world is gradually preparing them for a future that may look very different from the future they once imagined. And this is where your connection becomes especially significant. You may be connected to the decisions your soulmate is facing in ways that are much deeper than either of you currently understands. Some people enter our lives briefly and leave without creating any lasting change. We remember them for a while, then continue on our separate paths. But there are other connections that become woven into our inner world. They influence our thoughts, our emotions, our expectations, and sometimes even the major decisions we make long after a conversation has ended. When a connection reaches this level of emotional significance, it naturally becomes connected with the important turning points of our lives. A person does not always realize how deeply another individual has affected them until they reach a moment when they must make a serious decision about their future. This may be exactly what your soulmate is experiencing now. There can be moments when someone believes they are simply making a decision about their career, their personal circumstances, their location, their responsibilities, or their goals. Yet beneath the obvious issue, another emotional reality may be influencing the decision. Sometimes the deeper question is connected to a relationship that awakened something within them that they had never fully acknowledged. The presence of another person can awaken desires, fears, hopes, memories, and questions that were previously hidden. Once those emotions have been brought into awareness, they become extremely difficult to silence again. Your soulmate may have tried to remain practical. They may have attempted to focus only on responsibilities and everyday concerns. They may have told themselves that certain feelings were temporary or that they would eventually disappear if ignored long enough. But emotional truth does not always disappear simply because someone refuses to look at it. Even when a person tries to concentrate entirely on practical matters, their deeper emotional reality can continue influencing their thoughts in quiet but powerful ways. Your soulmate may find themselves thinking about you repeatedly while considering these important choices. Your presence may come into their mind during unexpected moments. A memory of you may suddenly appear while they are alone. Something you once said may return to their thoughts at exactly the moment they are questioning their direction. They may not openly admit how much your connection affects them. They may not even fully understand it themselves, but something about you may represent a possibility they cannot completely dismiss anymore. Perhaps you represent a version of life that feels more emotionally honest. Perhaps your connection awakened a part of them that had been asleep for years. Perhaps being around you made them realize that they had been living according to expectations rather than according to what their heart actually wanted. This does not necessarily mean they have everything figured out. In fact, they may be more confused than ever, but confusion can sometimes be evidence that an old way of thinking is beginning to break apart. When someone has spent years following one direction, realizing that another path exists can initially feel frightening rather than liberating. They may be asking themselves questions such as, what if I choose differently? What if I have been avoiding what I truly feel? What if the life I considered safe is no longer the life that feels right? And perhaps most importantly, what would happen if I finally stopped running from the truth? These questions can create enormous internal pressure. Your soulmate may be experiencing moments of silence where they withdraw from others because they need time to understand themselves. They might appear distant, distracted, or unusually quiet. This does not automatically mean they have stopped caring. Sometimes distance occurs because a person is attempting to process emotions that are too complicated to explain. There are experiences that cannot be understood through conversation alone. Sometimes a person has to sit with their own thoughts long enough for the truth to become clear. And while this is happening, your connection may continue existing quietly in the background of their mind. They may compare other experiences to what they felt with you. They may remember the emotional safety, intensity, familiarity, or sense of recognition they experienced around you. They may wonder why certain feelings connected to you have remained even after time has passed. That is why this moment can be so important. A turning point does not always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like hesitation. Sometimes it looks like someone taking longer than expected to make a decision. But internally, a tremendous amount can be taking place. The person may be breaking away from old fears. They may be questioning old assumptions. They may be learning to distinguish what they genuinely want from what they were simply taught to want. And eventually, that process can lead them toward a much more honest understanding of their heart. Your role in this does not necessarily mean that you must chase them, convince them, or force anything to happen. Sometimes the deepest connections unfold through space, reflection, patience, and personal growth. What matters most is that both people become more honest versions of themselves. If your soulmate is truly moving through a major internal transformation, they may need to discover certain truths for themselves. No one else can complete that journey on their behalf. What you can recognize is that something has shifted. The old version of their life may no longer satisfy them in the same way. The questions they once avoided may now demand answers. The feelings they once buried may now be asking to be understood. And the connection they once tried to place into a simple category may have become something much more difficult to ignore. This is why the current challenge may be much bigger than it appears. It may not simply be about what happens next between you and your soulmate. It may be about who they are becoming as a person. It may be about whether they are willing to step away from fear and move toward authenticity. It may be about whether they can finally acknowledge what their inner world has been trying to tell them for a long time. And sometimes before two people can truly come together in a meaningful way, both individuals have to become more aligned with who they genuinely are. Your soulmate may currently be standing at that threshold. One chapter is slowly closing, another is beginning to take shape. They may not know exactly where the new path leads, but something inside them already knows that returning completely to the old way is becoming impossible. So if you have recently felt that something is different, if certain memories have suddenly become stronger, if you have experienced unexpected emotions or an unusual sense that something is moving behind the scenes, do not immediately dismiss those feelings. You do not have to force an outcome. You do not have to chase an answer. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remain grounded while allowing life to reveal what needs to be revealed. Because when someone reaches a genuine turning point, they eventually have to choose between continuing to live according to fear or finally listening to the deeper truth within themselves. And your soulmate may be much closer to that choice than you realize. The challenge they are facing may be uncomfortable, but it may also be preparing them for a level of emotional honesty they have never experienced before. It may be teaching them what truly matters. It may be showing them which relationships are built on fear and which connections continue to hold meaning even through silence, distance, and uncertainty. For now, the transformation may still be happening quietly. But quiet does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the greatest changes begin in complete silence, long before anyone else can see the evidence. And perhaps that is exactly where your soulmate is right now, standing between who they have always been and who they are finally becoming. While a connection they cannot easily explain continues to remind them that some feelings are not meant to be ignored forever, they may be wondering how certain choices could influence the connection they share with you. They might be asking themselves whether those decisions could bring the two of you closer or create even more distance. Perhaps they are questioning whether they are genuinely prepared to move towards something deeper, whether they are ready to become emotionally vulnerable, or whether they can fully trust the feelings that continue developing inside them. These questions are rarely simple to answer because meaningful connections have a way of challenging the emotional defenses that people have spent many years creating around themselves. Most people spend a significant part of their lives building emotional protection. These defenses often develop because of previous disappointments, fear of rejection, painful experiences, broken trust, or situations that taught them to remain careful and emotionally guarded. At first, these protective barriers can create a feeling of safety. They can make someone believe they are protected from being hurt again. But over time, those same barriers can become a prison, preventing genuine emotional growth and keeping a person from experiencing the depth of connection they secretly desire. When someone truly meaningful enters their world, those walls may begin to weaken. Feelings can appear that cannot simply be controlled, organized, or explained through logic. The heart begins asking for honesty and emotional authenticity, while fear continues demanding caution, distance, and self-protection. Your soulmate may currently find themselves caught between these two powerful forces. One side of them feels naturally pulled toward the possibilities that exist through their connection with you. Another side may still be afraid of what could happen if they finally admit how deeply they feel. They may wonder what would change if they stopped pretending that the connection does not matter. They may ask themselves whether opening their heart could lead to happiness or whether it could expose them to another painful experience. This creates a decision that is far more significant than it might appear from the outside. This is not simply about choosing one direction or another in life. At a much deeper level, it is about deciding whether they are finally willing to trust what they have been feeling internally. As they think about their current situation, they may begin noticing how often your influence appears in unexpected moments. A particular memory could suddenly return without any obvious reason. An old conversation might replay inside their mind repeatedly. Something you once said may suddenly sound completely different to them now. A moment they previously ignored might unexpectedly become meaningful. These experiences can happen when the unconscious mind begins bringing important emotional truths into conscious awareness. Sometimes the deeper part of a person recognizes the importance of a connection long before their logical mind can explain why it feels so significant. They may not have a perfect explanation for why they keep thinking about you, why certain memories remain unusually powerful, or why your presence seems to affect them differently from other people. There may also be parts of their personality that they are beginning to discover because of this bond. Another person can sometimes function like a mirror, revealing qualities within us that we were previously unable or unwilling to recognize. Through their connection with you, your soulmate may be seeing strengths they never gave themselves credit for. They may be recognizing emotions they previously refused to express. They may even be remembering dreams and desires that they once abandoned because they did not feel safe enough to pursue them. This process can feel inspiring while also being deeply unsettling. True self-discovery is not always comfortable because it requires a person to look directly at parts of themselves that they have avoided for a very long time. The decision they are facing may therefore involve much more than external circumstances. It may represent a choice between fear and courage, between emotional avoidance and complete honesty, between remaining inside familiar patterns and allowing themselves to grow into someone new. These choices are rarely comfortable. Growth almost always asks us to release something familiar, even when the future may contain something far more fulfilling. The uncertainty associated with change can feel overwhelming, especially for someone who has spent years believing that control is the only way to remain emotionally safe. Your soulmate may therefore be spending a great deal of time weighing different possibilities, examining their deepest emotions, and trying to discover what they genuinely want. They could be analyzing the situation repeatedly, looking at every detail, revisiting every interaction, and searching for some final sign that tells them exactly what they should do. They may believe that if they think about it long enough, they will eventually find complete certainty. But some of the most meaningful decisions in life cannot be solved through analysis alone. At some point, they require trust. They require a person to listen to their inner wisdom and acknowledge the emotional truth that has been trying to make itself known. This may be one of the hardest stages of transformation because people often want certainty before taking action, yet certainty frequently comes after the first step rather than before it. The courage to move forward often appears only when someone accepts that they cannot predict every possible outcome. Your connection may have become part of an important crossroads in your soulmate's life. Whether they openly express this to you or continue keeping their thoughts private, your presence may have contributed to a powerful period of reflection and emotional awakening. There are questions they may never have asked themselves if this connection had never entered their life. There are realizations that may never have surfaced if these emotions had not become so strong. The deeper a connection becomes, the more capable it can be of influencing the choices that shape someone's future. At moments like this, a person may begin realizing that certain decisions are not simply about changing external circumstances. They are about becoming the person they were always capable of becoming. Your soulmate may currently be moving through an intense period of inner conflict and emotional development, and this process could feel much more important to them than anything happening in their external world. Outside problems often have visible causes and practical solutions. Inner struggles are different because they require a person to confront pieces of themselves that may have remained hidden for years. It is not always a peaceful experience. In fact, authentic emotional growth often begins with confusion, uncertainty, discomfort, and the strange feeling that something deep inside is demanding attention. For a long time, people can become extremely skilled at avoiding their own emotions. They fill their schedules with responsibilities. They focus on work, routines, obligations, entertainment, social activities, and countless everyday distractions. These things can keep the mind occupied enough that deeper emotional questions remain unnoticed. But hidden emotions do not simply disappear because someone refuses to acknowledge them. They remain underneath the surface, influencing thoughts, reactions, relationships, and decisions in ways the conscious mind may not immediately recognize. Eventually, life can create circumstances that bring those hidden feelings directly into awareness. When that happens, a person may discover that they can no longer continue living exactly as they did before. Your soulmate could be experiencing this kind of turning point right now. Feelings they once pushed away may be becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Questions they previously avoided may now be demanding sincere answers. Memories they believed were insignificant may suddenly feel meaningful. This can create a powerful internal conflict because emotional truth often challenges the identity a person has carefully constructed for themselves. They may be forced to look beyond appearances and recognize what is actually happening inside their heart. One of the hardest aspects of this transformation is confronting fear. Fear can appear in many different forms. It may be fear of rejection, fear of disappointment, fear of vulnerability, fear of losing control, fear of abandonment, or even fear of discovering that they care more deeply than they ever intended to.